Welcome to this podcast by Charlie Kaupke. I'm a board member of the National Bit, Spur, and Saddle Collectors Association, and part of what we like to do is get information out to our members and the general public. We talk a lot about saddles, bits, and spurs, obvious Western collectibles, but an important part to me of the collectibles in the Western lifestyle is belt buckles. They go back into the 20s when they started giving away to trick ropers, to rodeo contestants. We have seen them through time be presented to trap shooters, golfers, skiers, square dances, you name it. They've given buckles away from them. Towns have had commemorative buckles. Some of them are just cast in pewter. Some of them are German silver. Some of them are bronze. Some of them are jeweler's gold. And some of them are sterling and gold. So we're going to talk a little bit today about Ranger style buckles and trophy style buckles. Now there's not a lot written about buckles. One of the best sources for me is to find the catalogs that sold buckles, whether it be Rinaldi, whether it be Porter's. You can go through a lot of the old catalogs that made them and sold them and get a lot of information about it. The one book that I'm going to present to you here today is called The Western Buckle. And it was put out quite a few years ago by the late David Stockman. And it is filled with pictures of buckles from many generations, world champion buckles, some of the greatest makers, Rangers, trophy styles, going clear back into the day. Here is an early Bolin buckle that had Edward H. Bolin's own initials on it. Here's an all-around buckle from one of the great rodeos. So there's not a lot, but that's a good source. Now, first I want to talk about Ranger buckles. And, of course, that is a buckle that consists of a complete set is going to have a buckle, keepers, and a tip. You'll see a lot of the older ones that is missing a tip. Sometimes they're missing a keeper, but they're not all marked. Most of them are. This one, actually, you just see a 10K and a sterling mark on it, but probably under the shield in the back, it's marked Nelson Bring Off. This buckle probably made in the 40s, and to me, it's one of the best Nelsons that you can own as far as Ranger sets, because back in the day they made 3/4 inch and 5/8 inch predominantly, and those are still heirlooms, especially in Texas where they was made. But finding a 1 inch has not always been that easy, and especially one that's got two keepers. So this is a really top end Ranger set, very, very collectible. Now here is another one that I'm going to show you. It's the Sunset Trails. Well, they started, I believe, in 49 and sold out about 5 years ago. But this one was made in the 90s. And here again, it's got double keepers. I actually ordered this one from Sunset Trails and ordered double keepers. Sometimes they'll put a wider keeper. Bolin was really known for putting one real wide keeper on it. But this is sterling and 10K. Now your Hollands, we'll talk a little bit more about them in a few moments. They've always used 14 karat gold and still today make some of the finest Ranger buckle sets that you've ever seen. Now, another one that you don't see a lot of, and this is a sterling and 10 karat gold, and it is a Solage, and it has gold rope edge. Some of them will have silver, some of them will have gold. But this is a Solage made in Reno, Nevada. Now, California is well known for having buckle makers there, all kinds of engravers. Some of them move from shop to shop. They done work for Bolin. They done work for Western Silversmiths or Rouse, and the list goes on. But in Reno at one time was also a hotbed of buckles. They had Solage and the Newman brothers. There's 3 of them there. So there's several buckle makers been made in the Reno area at one time. Now we talk about the Nelson buckles. Well, here's one that is from the 70s, that is very special to me, not because I won it. Needless to say, I never was a bull rider, but a good friend of mine that was a good bull rider won it and give it to me about 6 or 8 months ago to add to my buckle collection. So I wear it with pride because he is such a good friend, and I'm just honored. But this was made later. There was Nelson Sylvia, then Nelson, then, or excuse me, Nelson Bringoff, Nelson, and Nelson Sylvia. And this is what this one is, and it was given away in the 73-74 Winter Series for bull riding. But they're at Houston, and they was shut down for about 17 years, and they're back in business again and doing well. The another one I talked about Holland. You don't see a lot of their trophy buckles because they made a lot of jewelry, a lot of Ranger sets, but they did make a few trophy buckles, and this one was presented in 1960 at the National Intercollegiate Rodeo Association Rodeo in Stillwater, Oklahoma, where I reside, and I'm alumni of Oklahoma State. So this one takes special meaning to me. Here is another buckle that's very always special when it's won by a Hall of Famer, but this one was won in 1949 by Jess Goodspeed at the Garden City, Kansas Cowboys and Carnival Rodeo. It is not marked other than Sterling and 10K, but it's definitely a buckle that came out of California in that era. As well as this is also a 1949 buckle that was presented at Coffeyville, Kansas Rodeo to the champion bareback rider, but it was donated by Cannon and Yoakum Saddle Shop in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Tudor Cannon, who went on to become a very famous saddle maker out in the Caprock, was the donor of this, and he was in Tulsa till 49 after he got out of the military. His shop is now at the Western Heritage Center on the Texas Tech campus, his whole saddle shop. So that there's a lot of significance to buckles. Finding good ones with that kind of history is not easy. But they're always something to look for when you're out picking, for your flea markets, for your gun shows, wherever you might be. Keep an eye out for good belt buckles because they are special. They're very collectible, and it's not a big circle, but the people that are collectors are very dedicated. And one of the most special buckles that, other than a world champion rodeo, PRCA world champion, is the Cheyenne buckle. This is once again, a Sunset Trails made buckle, and they made it for years for Cheyenne Frontier Days. And these are always hard to find. I think I've seen 4 of them for sale in my life. And this is one of them. Another thing that come along probably a little later, but still important to know, is our Benton Spur makers started making buckles out of steel and putting silver on them. And here's one made by the late Ray Anderson. And they make good headstall buckles, good belt buckles. And they also have some value, especially if somebody like a Billy Clapper made them or Jerry Cates made them. They become very collectible in their own way. Here's one I asked Mr. Ray to make for me with my initials. And I didn't have any idea he's going to make it solid sterling. I thought it was going to be steel with sterling overlaid. So this is something that's very special to me as well. Well, that's just a quick, brief discussion, a little bit of history about belt buckles, but it's something I think we really need to be aware of as we look at Western collectibles. And I think during a period back 20 years ago when gold got high, I'm afraid that some really good heirloom type buckles got melted down, and we don't want that to happen. So if they're in your family, I encourage you to keep them or place them with somebody that appreciates them and will add them to their collection. Once again, I'm Charlie Kaupke at the National Bit, Spur, and Saddle Collectors Association. You can find out more about us on our Facebook page or our web page. We love to hear from you, and we love to have you a member. God bless.